One of my favorite things about Expeditions is I love the character and the companion cards and the synergies that each combination brings to the game. I was wondering if there was a card of me, which one of you guys would be my companion? What? What's with the awkward silence?
I think we're all just wondering why you think there'd be a card of you.
I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Expeditions Gears of Corruption, the expansion to last year's Expeditions from Stonemaier games. Expansions can come in all shapes and sizes. They can be standalone, they can be a necessity to play, or they could just be added fluff. So why do I think this one stands out? Let me explain. We hadn't posted a review of Expeditions the base game, so I'll just take a quick minute to tell you our initial thoughts on it. What's interesting is both Kelly and I had pretty much the same impression of Expeditions. We really liked what was happening in the game, and both of us saw it as a game we'd ultimately like better than Scythe itself, which I know is a big statement. I really liked the card play and how the workers were utilized and how the different cards would help develop your engine. I liked the exploration element, I liked the way everything looked. And I liked that little organic DNA that it does share and cross over with Scythe when it comes to scoring and such. And still feeling like you're in that Scythe world, obviously with the theming. I liked all of the new mechanics and I thought it added a lot. And I thought overall it was a really fantastic game. There were just a few things that held it back from being the best for me personally. In our initial plays of Expeditions, Kelly had pointed out 3 specific things that I also had felt were just areas that I wish were a little different. And that's why I wanted to go directly to talking about the expansion of Gears of Corruption. The name of this video is this a perfect expansion? And to cut to the chase, I want to say yes, and I'm going to tell you why. Gears of Corruption, in this one little box, coincidentally addressed the 3 issues that we had when we played Expeditions, and they're not major things. They were very minor things, but enough that we were noticing them. What those are is the original player boards in the base game were not ideal. You had one track for 2 pieces to move up, and you had your cube you're moving around on the top right of the board for your actions. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this is minor, but it was definitely a usability issue. In Gears of Corruption, they provide upgraded boards, have separate and sunken tracks for your power and guile, and sunken spots for your action cube. While being a little thing, it makes the usability of the game skyrocket. The next thing is, originally I felt like it took a few steps into getting into the rhythm and flow of the game, and that was resolved completely by the addition of the hero worker in Gears of Corruption. Essentially, you start the game with a wild worker that's going to stay with you, and it helps you get that flow of your engine going much quicker. And somehow with this one little added mechanism of having a wild worker from the start, it sped up the process and really felt like I was getting into the meat of the game within minutes of starting. And to be fair, not all games have that to begin with. So that's why with Expeditions, it was kind of a minor thing. You had to ramp up into that engine, into what felt like the common flow of the game. But having this here just lets you get to the fun quicker, which I think is always a good thing. And finally, with the first game, the other thing that I thought was a little bit lacking was the fact that the map tokens were just that. They were just blank map tokens. There wasn't much to it other than collecting it when you would explore into a new hex that you hadn't previously explored. However, the upgraded map tokens in Gears of Corruption actually having a reward when you get to them, that simplest little touch makes every single step of exploration that much more interesting. Now on top of that, we have 2 new mechs in the game. We have multiple new cards and characters that are added for some more diversity in play. And we have the Corrupted Mech module, all of which spice up the already really interesting gameplay with A, more variety in the cards, and then B, having a whole new module to add into the game that adds a nice layer of tension into the mix. On top of exploring, on top of that interaction, now you have another figure on the board affect your choices in gameplay. Now you might say, hold on a second, how in the world would you label this perfect? It sounds like there were some issues with expeditions, and this is fixing them. First of all, the issues with expeditions were, as I said, relatively minor. I still loved the game, happy to have it in my collection, and like I said, all of my tendencies was that I actually enjoyed it better than the site. So my point is, Gears of Corruption, as an expansion, is perfect. Because I think what is the definition of a perfect expansion, at least for me, is one of a few different things. It's either something that adds more to a game that already has some. If you have a game that has tons of cards, adding some more cards is a great thing. Adding in new modules is the other. Taking a game that has a certain level of complexity, a certain level of things going on, and just putting in another little special module, something to spice it up a little bit. That's a great way to utilize an expansion. I'm not necessarily a fan of expansions that are there strictly to increase complexity. I think that that's something that is, of course, a matter of taste. I like it when it adds to the game thematically, or just to the tension around the table. The third thing an expansion could do, potentially, is fix issues with the base game. I think that's something that can be addressed in expansions, and that's definitely better than pretending they didn't happen. And that's why I do think Gears of Corruption is a perfect expansion, because it does all three of those things. It gives you a little more of what you already enjoyed in the base game. It adds a new module, something to spice it up. And third, it does correct some minor issues with the base game, taking a really good game and making a truly exceptional one. So final thoughts on this is, if you have played neither, I think you could just play Expeditions and you will be fine. If you want to jump in with both, I would recommend it. If you only have Expeditions and enjoy it, I highly, highly recommend getting Gears of Corruption. And if you had Expeditions and it wasn't for you, this may address some of the issues. So I'd say definitely to give it a try if you have the opportunity. And that's all that I wanted to say today. Keep on exploring in your expedition, uncover some map tiles, and keep playing board games like an animal.
I agree with what you were saying about Gears of Corruption, but I still don't think that there should be a car to you.